Tone, the 17th dimension. Tone, in the sense in which we understand the meaning of the word sound, is one of the great dimensions. Tone is registered in sound as it is in color, plane, temperature, and other dimensions. Every expression of energy has its own particular tonal sound, just as it has its own color plane or degree of temperature. Sound is generally conceived to be the result of a concussion taking place in the air. The ether of space is generally conceived to be soundless. This concept is not in accord with the laws of motion. Sound is from the beginning, and from the very first octave. It matters not how low or how high the potential. Every active and reactive oscillation is accompanied by sound. Sound increases in resonance as potential accumulates. Both effects of motion are due to the same cause, the generation of accumulated energy from the first to the 10th octave and its radiation into inertia. All states of motion register themselves tonally in the opposites of sound in the same periodicities as they register themselves in the other dimensions. All sound is caused by potential impacting against potential or separating from potential. All sound is the result of explosions of accumulating or redistributing energy. Every generative action and every radiative reaction is an explosion. All explosions are either general active or radioactive. General active explosions are those in which two opposing potentials seek each other with violence. Such explosions are gravitative. They are born of centrifugal force, and they are due to the power of matter to appear to attract. General active explosions draw corpuscles into forming mass. These are the explosions by means of which mass is accumulated. General active explosions are endothermic or heat-absorbing. Radioactive explosions are those in which high potential discharges into lower potential with violence. Such explosions are radiative, they are born of centrifugal force, and they are due to the power of matter to appear to repel. Radioactive explosions eject corpuscular emanations from mass. These are the explosions of expanded mass by means of which accumulated mass is redistributed. Radioactive explosions are exothermic or heat-expelling. General active explosions are caused by the desire of positive charge to accumulate mass. Radioactive explosions are caused by the desire of negative discharge to redistribute accumulated masses of stored energy into a state of inertia. General active and radioactive explosions in sequence are analogous to the intake and exhaust of a pump. The preponderance of one or the other is the condition precedent to mass formation or mass dissolution. The alternating explosive oscillations which simultaneously integrate and disintegrate, evolving and devolving mass, cause sounds of greater or less intensity according to the potential position of the actions and reactions which cause those sounds. Just as all motion is expressed in waves, so are all waves registered in their various dimensions. All states of motion are measurable as dimensions. Sound is a dimension. Sound being a dimension is, therefore, measurable. Explosions in the low potential position of the first 6 octaves are registered in the elements as full tones. Each full tone of sound is a whirlpool formed around a central nucleus or vortex, toward which the generative energy induced by the effect of the explosion rushes with increasing violence, and away from which the reaction to that explosion rushes with decreasing violence. When energy accumulates to the high potential positions of the 6th and 7th octaves, the tonal explosions take place as full tones from the 0 minus position in inertia to the 3 plus and 3 minus positions in their octave waves. At these points, the accumulation of general active and radioactive force is so great that the 5 midtonal vortices are form between those positions and the overtone of the wave. These mid-tonal vortices are the basis for 10 new elements to each octave, 5 of which are positive and the other 5 negative. In the still higher potential positions of the 8th, 9th, and 10th octaves, many more mid-tonal vortices appear, which form the basis of many more elements, half of which in each octave are positive and half negative. Sound emanates from the explosions of every potential, no matter how low or how high. More than this, the sound from either general active or radioactive explosions register themselves in every octave, both higher and lower than the octave of source. For a familiar example, let us consider the sound of the human voice, which is a general-active explosion, because of the fact that it is a higher potential generated out of a lower. The series of explosions which give birth to this sound becomes radioactive in the lower octaves and redistributes that accumulated energy into the lower potentials against which it impacts in that state of potential which we would term the air. The sound radiates slowly, but its discharge into the potential of the lower octaves will travel around the planet several times, while the same sound travels across the valley through the air. On the contrary, its impact against a cliff will retard its progress in the higher potentials of higher octaves, but the sound continues to the end of the cycle. The cliffside undergoes an increase in positive charge because of the impact of energy against it. Just as we can hear the explosions of general active energy through the senses of hearing by impact of that energy against our eardrums, so can the explosions of low potential be reproduced with delicate instruments so that their regeneration into higher octaves would make them discernible to our sense of hearing. The bombardment of radioactive emanations can even now be amplified so that they can be heard. Master mechanics must devise instruments so delicate that low potential explosions may be amplified and measured with as great accuracy as they have devised instruments for recording even a millionth degree of temperature. It must be remembered that all explosions travel both ways, up and down the octaves, for there can be no action without a corresponding reaction, nor can there be a reaction of an action without a repetition of both. This is a universe of reproduction, and any effect of motion runs the entire gamut of all effects of motion. The force of that which is running away from inertia is equal to the speed of that which is returning to inertia. The speed of one is very great and its force very little. On the contrary, the force of the other is very great and its speed very little. For the purposes of comparing the variable relation of tone to the attraction of gravitation and the repulsion of radiation, it is only necessary to point out the different speeds at which any sound reproduces itself according to the potential in which the sound finds itself. Just as high potential discharges into low with ever-increasing speed of reproduction, so does sound raise its tone and increase its reproductive speed. It also decreases its wave dimensions as potential powers. Just as nature's mechanical principles do not permit a waste of energy by allowing the discharge of any accumulated energy to be used without repeated regeneration, so must that gradual and sequential discharge and recharge be registered in ever-lessening sound intensity and with ever-increasing speed as power diminishes.